get viewers involved.
Sure.
We've got Patrick in Virginia, Democrat. You're up first, Patrick.
Yes, my question to the congressman is that, first of all, a death of American is a death, whether in the hands of an illegal immigrant or in the hands of a twisted-minded young man in South Carolina or anybody, a terrorist. It's a death of an American and death of a person. Now, what I don't understand is how the Congress is very swift to move on the of a lady tragically under the somebody who is supposed to have been deported 5 times, and yet at the same time, the Congress has not taken any action on banning the Confederate flag on federal grounds.
Okay, we'll take your point, Patrick. Congressman?
Yeah, that's an interesting connection that the caller has made. I don't think the Confederate flag has any place on government property. And in Florida, we saw a great example of leadership in 2001, long before we were having this intense debate today. Governor Jeb Bush said this flag is part of our history, but it does not unify our citizens, and it doesn't represent our state today. So he got it and put it in a museum, and that's what we should do here. That flag represents an army that lost a war, and we are the United States of America, and we should be united under one flag. So even though I don't understand the connection between that and the unfortunate events of San Francisco, I understand the caller's sentiment.
Okay, we'll go to Miami. John, a Republican.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the congressman for his comments earlier, and I just wanted to underline a bit of what I hear from Secretary of State Kerry. First off, this Cuba policy is a retread of the Carter policies of the 1970s, Clinton policies of the 1990s, that ended in American lives being lost during the Mariel boat lift when Fidel Castro sent thousands of murderers to the United States in an effort to taint the 100,000 good Cubans that were fleeing a tyranny. In the 1990s, as Congressman Curbelo has indicated, planes were shot down with boats to rescue. Massacres were committed in Cuba, such as the July 13th tugboat sinking, as Bill Clinton was engaged in to normalize relations with Cuba. And now we see with this administration, not only the North Korea smuggling of weapons by the regime to North Korea, but also to Colombia just in February of 2015 this year. Nevertheless, they took them off the list of state sponsors of terrorism. The question for the congressman is this. We saw earlier this week how Rosa Maria Payaju's father in 2003 met with Secretary of State Colin Powell, was received at the U.S. State Department, how she was threatened with being physically removed from the State Department if she asked a question at a press conference with Secretary of State John Kerry and the Cuban foreign minister, even though she was properly credentialed as a journalist. My question for the congressman is Congress thinking about looking into hearings on the terrorist nature of the Cuban regime, on the threat of espionage from the new Cuban embassy, considering that they have an intelligence service that has promoted, back in the 60s, planned to bomb Macy's and other targets in New York, and furthermore, how this administration is approaching Cuban dissidents, as we just saw earlier this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call and for all those questions. We are going to do, Greta, everything we can to hold the administration accountable on Cuba policy. What people have to understand is that foreign policy and diplomacy in the United States is handled by the executive, so we are somewhat limited in what we can do. However, there's already a bill in the House that's being, and there's a companion legislation in the Senate that's being sponsored by Mac Thornberry, Chairman of House Armed Services, and Devin Nunes, Chairman of Intelligence, that seeks to prevent the Cuban military and intelligence services from benefiting from any of the concessions or the loosened restrictions that President Obama has put into place. And we have made the State Department very aware of our concerns with regards to Cuban espionage. The FBI has recognized to us that Cuba maintains one of the most robust spy networks in the United States out of any country in the world. That new Cuban embassy and the expanded flexibility that the embassy will now have, that it's operating as an embassy, is very dangerous because Cuban spies are now going to have greater latitude and are going to have more resources at their disposal. So the caller from back home raises some very important points, and we are focused here every day on seeing how we can put the brakes on all of this Cuba policy that the Obama administration is changing.
Okay. Augusta, Georgia. William, an independent.
Yes, I'm going to try to remain calm as best I can here, but I think I'm speaking for really millions of people. I tend to vote Republican, but I really call myself a constitutional conservative, and the congressman is the kind of Republican that drives us away from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has touched a nerve, and if you don't believe this, Congressman, you just keep it up on telling him to leave the race, get out, that he's a clown, all of these other comments. We are tired of this. He is touching a nerve. And you referred to Mexican Americans. What you do, like so many of the other in the Republican ruling class and also the Democrats, is you conflate illegal immigration with regular, true immigrants. We are talking about illegal immigrants. And you know good and well, Congressman, that Mr. Trump was not saying that all Mexican, even the illegal Mexicans, are rapists. He was, but you tell that to the family of Kate Steinle and these others that testified on Capitol Hill. You, sir, are the reason that many of us are leaving behind. I will not vote for Jeb Bush if he's the nominee. You keep it up.
Okay. Congressman.
Yeah, I have to be very honest and say that I think anyone who is seriously considering supporting Donald Trump for president really has to reevaluate what their vision is for the future of our country. Again, Mr. Trump is a candidate who's not advancing any solutions. He's saying silly things, trying to draw attention to himself. He's trying to inspire fear and anger in people, as we just heard from the caller. And look, I get it. There's a lot that frustrates me as a member of Congress. I think illegal immigration is a very serious problem in this country. I'm focused on solutions, not on rhetoric, not on getting people angry, not on getting people excited, just on sober solutions that will help fix this problem. We can, through either one bill or 10 bills, I don't care how it gets done, secure our border, reform our visa system, make sure that we account for everyone in this country. If there are any criminals, like the man who murdered that young lady in San Francisco, those people have to be either put in jail or sent away to their countries, and if they come back to our country, they have to be put in jail for even longer. But to say that Donald Trump is the solution or has somehow enlightened our country, it's quite the opposite. He's done a lot of harm and really contributed nothing, because I have not heard one single solution except maybe this silly idea of forcing the Mexican government to build a massive wall, which most people understand isn't going to happen.